Hello everyone, my name is Olivia Yates and today I'll be presenting on the effectiveness of individualized education programs, otherwise known as IEPs, in supporting students with autism. This research builds on my literature review and paper where I explored whether IEPs are working the way they were designed and what needs to improve. By the end of this presentation, I hope you'll not only understand what the research says, but also feel motivated to help make IEPs stronger, more meaningful, and more empowering for autistic learners. Autism spectrum disorder, referred to as ASD, impacts communication, learning differences, and social development. An individualized education program, or IEP, is a legally mandated document in public schools that describes a student's strengths, needs, accommodations, and long-term academic and behavioral goals. For autistic students, IEPs commonly address communication, sensory needs, social development, emotional regulation, academic support, and transition planning. The question guiding my research was simple: are IEPs effective for autistic students? And if so, under what conditions? Research shows that IEPs are most effective when goals are individualized, collaborative, measurable, and implemented consistently and effectively. Today, we will look at both sides, what works, what doesn't, and how we can improve. I chose this topic because autism support in schools is not optional, it's essential. Diagnosis rates continue to rise, and more autistic students are spending time in general education classrooms than ever before. Many families report inconsistent support. Some children thrive with IEPs, others struggle, even with one in place. So my thesis for this project is individualized education programs are an effective education supporting tool for students with ASD because when they are collaboratively developed and properly implemented, they lead to measurable improvements in academic performance, communication, and post-secondary readiness. The key phrase is when they are implemented well. IEPs don't succeed because they exist, they succeed because people choose to do them well. Let's begin by looking at research that supports the idea that IEPs are effective when implemented properly. Rubel and McGrew emphasize that IEPs work best when goals are individualized, measurable, and driven by student needs, not generic or copied and pasted. They note that outcomes improve most when IEP teams collaborate deeply, involving teachers, parents, therapists, and the student. This tells us that IEPs are only as effective as the people designing and executing them. Building on this, Rubel et al. 2018 evaluated the COMPASS model, an IEP planning framework, and found that significant improvements in student engagement, communication, and academic growth compared to control groups. What stands out about COMPASS is its structure: individualized planning, teacher coaching, progress monitoring, and ongoing revisions. This aligns perfectly with the idea that IEPs must be living documents, not just paperwork. Love et al. Found similar results, showing that IEPs that integrate evidence-based practices, particularly visual supports, structured teaching, and behavior regulation strategies, led to meaningful academic and behavioral improvement among autistic learners. This demonstrates that the quality of the strategies within an IEP matters just as much as the structure of the document itself. Odom et al. 2021 contributed a major insight to this discussion by showing that implementation fidelity is one of the strongest predictors of IEP success. It is not enough to write good goals. Teachers and staff must follow through with interventions consistently. Students in the study who received highly consistent and effective implementation showed improvements in language development, functional independence, and academic engagement. If we pause here and imagine a classroom, we can see why this matters. Two students could have identical IEP goals, but if only one receives consistent instruction, planned behavior supports, and daily accommodations, that student will almost always outperform the other. Research repeatedly reinforces that delivery determines effectiveness. Building on that, Gale 2024 found that students benefit most when IEPs consider both academic goals and functional life skills goals. Communication, emotional regulation, daily living skills, and social participation strongly predict long-term independence. This challenges the historical tendency to focus only on academic performance and highlights that IEPs can influence a student's quality of life far beyond school. Donaire et al. 2024 expanded this further, demonstrating that IEPs that incorporate goal tracking tools, parent training, and ongoing progress adjustment lead to better outcomes than those reviewed only annually. This reflects a critical shift. IEPs are dynamic learning blueprints. How to Develop Effective IEPs for Children with Autism 2025 provides practical framework for teachers using SMART goals, embedding sensory supports, planning for transitions, and integrating student interests into instruction. These strategies increase motivation, reduce disengagement, and encourage autonomy. Together, this research paints a clear picture. When IEPs are individualized, collaborative, data-driven, continuously monitored, and implemented consistently and effectively, students with autism grow academically, socially, and functionally. However, not all research supports IEP effectiveness. Finley et al. Found that many IEPs include vague or immeasurable goals, making progress difficult to evaluate. Kurth et al. Reported that teachers often lack training in autism-specific interventions, limiting the IEP's effectiveness even when goals are appropriate. Some IEPs focus heavily on compliance behaviors, such as sit still, make eye contact, follow directions, rather than communication, autonomy, self-regulation, or genuine learning. This can unintentionally reinforce masking and places stress on autistic students rather than supporting them. The criticism is not that IEPs cannot work, it's that many are not well written or implemented well enough to work. IEPs are often good in theory, but sometimes inconsistent in practice. So how do we move forward? Research across these studies points towards several meaningful changes. First, improving goal quality, because SMART goals increase clarity and progress. Second, increase teacher training, because skills matter more than paperwork. Third, we can strengthen collaboration between parents, educators, and students, and they can co-construct plans. Fourth, monitor progress consistently. The data should guide instructional decisions. Fifth, prioritize communication and independence, not just compliance. Because when schools adopt these practices, research becomes reality. A child can learn to communicate, a teenager will build life skills, and a family will feel supported, not dismissed. That is what makes an IEP meaningful. During this research, one idea really stayed with me. A good IEP can change a student's future, but a weak IEP can limit their potential. I found myself thinking about how much power educators have, whether they advocate, observe carefully, or adjust goals instead of letting them sit on paper for a year unchanged. This assignment has helped me understand that behind every IEP is a human being, a child with unique strengths, interests, and a life ahead of them. Families depend on teachers and support teams to honor that child by building a plan that genuinely meets their needs. IEPs are not just documents stating what we must do with students. They are promises. So let's return to the thesis that IEPs can effectively support students with autism when written clearly, implemented collaboratively, and monitored for progress. The research supports this, but also cautions us. IEPs fail when goals are vague, when data isn't tracked, or when educators lack training. My final recommendation is this. Schools must invest in autism-specific training. IEP teams should prioritize strengths in communication. Students should have a voice in their own plan. The goal must be long-term independence, not short-term compliance. If we do these things, IEPs can fulfill their purpose, not just legally, but meaningfully. Not just on paper, but in lives. Although they are teeny tiny, here are my references used in this presentation and my paper. Feel free to take a gander at them. And then I just wanted to say a quick thank you to everyone who watched my presentation. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Have a good last week or so of your semester.